my daughter-in-law shouted. "This isn't your house anymore." She wanted to take over my home and throw me out, but I sold it first to take back control in the only way I could. And when I did, she got another shock that left her speechless. I'm glad you're here to listen to my story. Stay with me until the end, and tell me which city you're listening from. I'd love to know how far this story travels. 2 years ago, my daughter-in-law, Melissa, called me in tears, saying their landlord was selling the apartment and they had to move out. I didn't hesitate. I said, "Of course, come here. My house is big, there's plenty of room for everyone." My youngest son, Jason, and my 2 grandchildren, Emma and Benjamin, arrived that same rainy October afternoon. I still remember Jason unloading boxes from the rented truck while Melissa stood in the hallway, glancing around like she was already imagining how to decorate. The kids ran from room to room, laughing, thrilled to finally have space after years cramped in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment. "Thank you so much, Mom," Jason said, hugging me tight. "Just a few months, once we find something stable, we'll move out." Melissa nodded, her eyes scanning every corner of the house. I thought she was just looking for where to put things. The first few weeks went smoothly. I gave them the upstairs 2 bedrooms and a small bathroom, while I stayed downstairs near the kitchen. We didn't talk much. Jason worked long hours at the auto shop. Melissa was job hunting after being laid off from a dental clinic, and the kids were in school. But after a month, small changes began. Melissa rearranged the furniture in the living room. "Sarah, you don't mind, do you?" she asked while dragging my favorite armchair away from the window. "It'll be easier for the kids to do homework this way." I said nothing. If it helped the children, fine. That chair had sat by the window for 15 years since, the day my husband placed it there. Maybe it was time for change. Then the hand-embroidered tablecloth my mother had given me disappeared, replaced by a cheap plastic one with cartoon prints. "The kids eat here," Melissa said when I asked. "That cloth is too nice to ruin. I'll keep it safe." She folded it away into a drawer, and I never saw it again. By winter, Melissa had found a receptionist job at a private clinic. The pay was decent, and they started talking about finding their own place. But winter passed, spring came, and no one mentioned moving again. The house began to change. A huge flat-screen TV appeared in the living room. Jason brought it home after fixing a car for a client who paid with electronics instead of cash. "You can keep your old TV in your room, Mom," Melissa said. "We'll stay out of your way." The refrigerator changed too. My usual groceries, fresh cheese, vegetables, yogurt were pushed to the back, replaced by kids' yogurt, frozen meals, and soda. Melissa did all the shopping, and soon the fridge felt more like hers than mine. "Do we still have mayonnaise?" she asked once, rummaging through jars. Somehow that "we" became her favorite word. I'd worked as a nurse for 38 years, used to order and quiet. After my husband passed 3 years ago, the house had felt painfully empty. At first, I was grateful for the noise, the laughter, the sound of life again, but slowly I realized my opinion no longer mattered. Melissa no longer asked before inviting friends over. She simply announced, "My friend's coming tomorrow, she's bringing her kids." When I played classical music, they groaned. My grandson changed the station without asking. "Grandma, your music makes me sleepy," he said, and Melissa didn't correct him. By summer, things got worse. Melissa redesigned the garden. The rose bushes I'd tended for over a decade were uprooted to make space for a playground. "The kids need somewhere to play," she said when I found the plants tossed behind the shed. When I asked if she could replant them elsewhere, she shrugged. Soon the yard was filled with swings and sandboxes. I began to feel like a guest in my own home. My routines revolved around theirs. My belongings vanished or were moved. One morning I couldn't find my favorite mug, the one I used every day for tea. Melissa shrugged. It probably broke. Happens with kids. A week later, I found it shoved behind jars of jam in the pantry. Maybe someone decided one mug too many was clutter. By winter, I could hardly stand it. Melissa criticized everything I did. "Sarah, could you please clean your dishes right after breakfast?" she said, pointing to a single cup and plate in the sink. I'd kept house my whole life, but now even a misplaced spoon became a reason for her to lecture me about keeping things tidy for the kids. Jason said nothing. He'd come home, eat, and turn on the TV. "Mom, she's tired," he said when I complained. "She works all day and still has to take care of the kids." I waited for months, hoping they'd start house hunting. Each time I asked, Melissa had an excuse: prices too high, neighborhoods unsafe. My older son Michael rarely visited. Every few months he'd drop by for a weekend. He worked as an engineer in another city, single and busy. When he came, the house felt lighter. Melissa acted polite. The kids behaved. Jason tried harder to keep peace. "How are you, Mom?" Michael always asked, and I always answered, "I'm fine." I couldn't bring myself to say I felt like a stranger in my own home, that my daughter-in-law was slowly taking it over. I didn't want to sound like a bitter old woman who couldn't adapt. But lying awake at night, hearing laughter upstairs, I knew something was deeply wrong. The house I'd built over 20 years no longer felt like mine. By spring, Melissa didn't even pretend to ask for permission anymore. She just announced what she wanted to do. One April morning, she told me, "I'm having some friends over for coffee this Saturday." No question, no courtesy. "Cafes are expensive, and it's cozier at home," she said, taking out my best china. That first gathering, 5 women sat on my sofa, laughing loudly. I retreated to my room, but their voices echoed through the house. "It's so nice to finally have a place big enough to host," I heard Melissa say. A week later, they came again, this time taking over the kitchen. When I tried to cook, one woman with dyed hair looked at me like I was intruding. "Cynthia, this is my mother-in-law, Sarah," Melissa said lightly. Then she turned to me and whispered, "You can eat later, we're chatting right now." I went back to my room, hungry, humiliated. In my own house, I was told to wait for dinner because the guests came first. Those gatherings became regular, no longer just weekends. Her friends came on weekdays too, staying late, talking loudly, wearing heavy perfume, heels clicking on my wooden floors. When I complained, Melissa rolled her eyes. "Oh, Sarah, don't be dramatic. People need to socialize. You don't want us living like monks, do you?" Jason sided with her. "Mom, they're just talking. What's the harm?" But for me, they weren't just talking. They were erasing my peace, my home, my boundaries. By May, Melissa began criticizing my habits. "Sarah, could you lower the volume? The kids need to study." I was listening to soft classical music quieter than their TV. "And please don't leave your medication on the counter. It's not safe for the kids." My blood pressure pills had always sat beside the salt shaker where I could remember them. "You should keep your things tidier," she added. "Our house needs to stay organized." Our house, not your house. The words hit harder than I expected. Her attitude stung most. When the children were around, Emma and Benjamin had grown used to watching their mother scold me. Sometimes they repeated her words. "Grandma," Mom said, "you shouldn't leave dirty dishes in the sink." Benjamin reminded me even when the mess was his. "Grandma, why does your room smell like old people?" Emma asked innocently. but I knew those words weren't hers. I wasn't the loving grandmother who baked cookies and told stories anymore. To them, I was just an inconvenient adult in the same house. By June, Melissa reorganized the laundry schedule. She stopped me outside the laundry room, holding a basket. "Sarah, we need a clear schedule," she said. "You can do laundry on Mondays and Thursdays. The rest of the week is ours. Otherwise, it's chaos." That washer was mine, bought with my retirement savings. Now I needed permission to use it. And please, don't wash small loads. It wastes water. Talking to Jason was useless. "Mom, why make such a big deal?" he said. "Melissa's right, we need order, especially with kids." "Jason, this is my house," I whispered. "Mom, we're family. You said you were lonely after Dad passed, remember? Now there's laughter again. Isn't that better?" Maybe he was partly right. I had feared loneliness, but I never thought living with family meant losing my place entirely. "You should be happy the grandkids are here," Jason said. "Many people would love that." And they were here, but not really with me. The bond we once had was gone. They used to see me as someone special, the grandma with hidden chocolate and bedtime stories. Now they came only when they needed something. "Grandma, can I have $10 for ice cream?" "Grandma, where's Mom?" No walks together, no talks, just small requests. I'd become a housemaid in the home I once owned. By midsummer, Melissa acted like the house was hers. She invited co-workers, neighbors with kids, even distant relatives. "My sister and her family are coming today," she'd announce. "They'll stay in the living room." My living room became a guest room, dining room, playground, never mine. I had to knock before entering my own space. Then August came the moment that made everything clear. I invited my old friend Linda for lunch. We hadn't seen each other in months and just wanted to catch up. Melissa frowned. "Sarah, I'm cleaning today. You should have told me. The kids are off school and need the living room." "But Linda's already on her way," I said. "Fine, you can sit in the kitchen, but don't take too long." Linda and I sat at the kitchen table like two employees sneaking a tea break. Melissa ran the vacuum loudly while the kids blasted the TV. Before leaving early, Linda looked around and whispered, "Something's not right here." I didn't know how to answer. How could I explain that I wasn't allowed to host a friend in my own living room because my daughter-in-law's plans mattered more than mine? That day, I knew something had to change, even if I didn't yet know how. September came with chilly rain and heavy silence. The house was warm thanks to the heater, but the tension inside made it feel cold. I decided to host a small tea gathering, just Linda, my neighbor Mrs. Hensley, and my old co-worker Claire. A quiet Sunday afternoon, like before the house became overrun. That Thursday night, I found Melissa washing dishes. "Melissa, I'd like to invite a few friends for tea this Sunday," I said gently. "Just 3 people, for about 2 hours, in the living room. We won't bother anyone." She didn't answer right away. She kept scrubbing the plate in her hands until the pattern nearly disappeared. Finally, she looked up. "Can't you move it to another day? Sunday's Emma's birthday." I froze. I remembered clearly Emma's birthday was in mid-October, but I didn't argue. "Then I can move it to Saturday." "Saturday's cleaning day," she said, "and the kids usually hang out in the living room on weekends. It's their house, too. Their house, not mine." "Fine," I whispered. "I'll move it to next week." She nodded and turned back to the dishes, while I walked to my room, heart heavy. The way she said their house made me realize I was just a guest asking permission to exist in a home I once built with love. But the next day, there was no birthday party. When I asked Emma about it, she looked puzzled. "Grandma, my birthday's in October." That's when I realized Melissa had made it up just to stop me. But why not just say no? On Friday evening, I tried again. Melissa, can I have my friends over next week? I've already made plans. She looked up from her phone, irritation flashing across her face. Sarah, why do you have to be so bothersome? You've got plans every weekend. This family needs time together too. But you have your friends over almost every weekend. I'm only asking once a month, I said quietly. That's different, she shot back. My friends are family friends. Yours are just a bunch of old ladies who complain and gossip. Linda was 58, Mrs. Hensley 61, and Claire 59, ordinary women who had worked their whole lives, just like me. But to Melissa, we were all old women with nothing to do. I swallowed my anger. Fine, I said. Then we'll sit in the kitchen. Melissa laughed mockingly. In the kitchen? Sarah, are you trying to turn this house into a nursing home? 4 old ladies cramped in that tiny kitchen, sipping tea out of plastic cups. She wasn't wrong about the space. It was small, but I had no other choice. On Saturday morning, while I was cleaning the living room, I heard Melissa on the phone. Yeah, come by tomorrow. Bring your kids too. Ours will play together. It'll be fun. So she already had her own plans for the living room. That afternoon, I approached Jason. Son, can I have a few friends over tomorrow? We'll stay quiet and won't bother anyone. He was sprawled on the couch, watching football, eyes glued to the screen. Talk to Melissa, Mom. That's women's stuff. I already did, but she always finds a reason to say no. Then she probably has a good reason. We all live together, Mom. You've got to think about everyone. Together, it sounded fair in theory, but in this house, my opinion didn't count anymore. On Sunday morning, I woke up early, baked a cake, and set the table in the kitchen. My friends were coming at 2 o'clock. Around 1:30, Linda called. Sarah, can we sit in the living room? Claire's back hurts. She can't handle hard chairs. I promised to take care of it and went to find Melissa. She was in the bathroom painting her nails. Melissa, can we use the living room? Claire has back pain, and it's uncomfortable for her to sit in the kitchen. Without looking up, she kept brushing on another layer of polish, as if she hadn't heard me. No, she said flatly. I already told you Cynthia's coming with her kids. We're using the living room. They're not here yet, I said, confused. Maybe we could sit there for a little while before they arrive. Melissa finally looked up, her eyes cold. Sarah, I don't want this house reeking of your old lady perfume. Cynthia's bringing her kids. You really want 4 elderly women sitting in the living room talking about their health problems? They're my friends, I said softly. And we don't just talk about that. Sure, she scoffed. It's always the same things were better back then, or young people don't respect anyone anymore. I'm sick of hearing it. Something inside me broke then. Maybe it was the last straw after 2 years of quiet endurance. Melissa, I said, keeping my voice steady. This is my house. I've lived here for 23 years. I have every right to invite my friends into my own living room. She shot up, knocking over the bottle of nail polish. Red liquid spread across the white counter. Damn it, she yelled, grabbing paper towels. See? Everything turns into a mess the second you start demanding things. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Just stop, she screamed. I've had it, Sarah. You always want something you're never satisfied. I'm tired of it. She scrubbed at the spill, but the stain only spread wider. We live here, okay? We have kids, a life, our own plans, and you keep interfering with your ridiculous habits. They're not ridiculous, I tried to say calmly. I just want to see my friends once in a while. Friends, she repeated, dripping with contempt. The very next day, I called a real estate agency. The woman who answered had a calm, professional voice. We set an appointment for the next afternoon. I wrote down the address and tucked the note deep inside my purse. All day I rehearsed excuses in case anyone asked where I was going, but no one did. Melissa was busy, Jason was at the shop, and the kids were doing homework. No one cared if I was gone for a few hours. The agency was in a small office building. A woman around 40 greeted me and introduced herself as Amanda Harris. "Tell me about the house," she said, inviting me to sit. I described it in detail: 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and a small backyard. Built in the 80s, still solid, everything working fine. "It's a quiet neighborhood," I added, "close to schools and the bus line, 15 minutes from downtown." Amanda took notes, tapped on her calculator, and said, "The estimate would be between $120,000 and $140,000. Once we inspect, we'll know for sure." I froze. My husband and I had bought in this house for $28,000, and it had felt like such a burden then. "Can it sell quickly?" I asked. "If we price it right, 1 to 3 months," she replied. "The market's hot, maybe even sooner." She handed me some flyers for small downtown apartments, priced between $50,000 and $70,000, cozy places with balconies, in modern buildings with elevators and security. As she walked me out, Amanda said, "If you decide to sell, call me. We'll appraise it properly and find a buyer." I hid the flyers under a stack of old photos in my drawer. That night, after everyone went to bed, I pulled them out again. If I sold the house, I could buy a small apartment and live comfortably for the next 10, maybe 15 years without worrying. The thought filled me with a strange calm, a space of my own, where I could invite friends without asking permission, where my things wouldn't disappear. But the moment I thought about selling, my chest tightened. This was the house where I'd lived with my husband, raised my sons, welcomed my grandchildren. How could I ever walk away from it? On Saturday morning, while I was having breakfast, I heard Melissa on the phone in the living room. "Oh, of course not. Where would she even go?" She laughed. "Everything she has is here, her sons, her grandkids, her neighbors. Let her complain. Old people always do. At least the kids get to grow up in a real house, not some cramped apartment." She paused. "Jason gets it. He knows his mom's just being stubborn. She'll calm down eventually." I walked out of the kitchen without saying a word. So that's what she thought, that I was harmless, too old to act. Maybe it was time to prove her wrong. The next day, while Melissa was cooking and the kids watched cartoons, I went to Jason. "Son, can we talk?" He looked up from his newspaper. "Sure, Mom. I think this house is getting too crowded. Don't you think it's time you freshen? Found your own place?" Jason frowned. "What are you talking about? Everything's fine here." "I know we have differences, but what family doesn't?" he said, trying to sound calm. "You know, we said we'd stay for a while." "You did," I reminded him, "but it's been 2 years." "Yeah, well, you know how hard it is to find a place now. Rent keeps going up, and anything decent is gone in a day. We're looking, Mom, we just haven't found anything worth the money." He stood and rested a hand on my shoulder. "Mom, what's this really about? Melissa said you were upset over some friends." "It's not about that, Jason. I just feel like I don't belong in this house anymore." "Don't belong?" he repeated, confused. "You're my mom, the kids' grandma. We love you." "What about Melissa?" I asked quietly. He sighed. "Mom, you know how women are, they like feeling in charge of their own home. You were young once, remember? You wanted your own place with Dad." I did remember, but back then, my husband and I built something together. We didn't take over someone else's home. Just be patient, Jason said. We'll find our own place soon. For now, let's keep the peace. That night, as I passed their room, I heard Melissa talking to him through the half-open door. Jason, I think your mom needs professional help. What do you mean? He asked. A doctor, maybe a therapist. She's been acting strange. Yesterday she demanded the living room for her friends. Today she wants us to move out. Could be early signs of dementia. Dementia. The word sent chills down my spine. Don't say that, Jason replied. She's fine, just been alone too long. I'm serious, Melissa said. Maybe she should live somewhere with proper care, like an assisted living place. They have doctors, people to talk to, constant supervision. Seniors are happy there. That's my mom, Jason said firmly. She's healthy, just old-fashioned. Think about it, she murmured. The kids are growing up. Emma's almost 13. She needs her own room. We're cramped upstairs while your mom has the biggest one downstairs. Don't you think that's unfair? Silence followed. Then Melissa spoke again, softer. I'm not saying we throw her out, just maybe start looking. Maybe she'll even like it. I stood outside, trembling. They called it taking care of my mental health, but it was really about getting rid of me. Her voice was sweet, but every word dripped with calculation. Worst of all, Jason seemed to be considering it. Slowly, Melissa was planting the idea that I was a burden. That night, I didn't sleep. If Melissa thought I was too old or too weak to do anything, she was wrong. I still had my house, my savings, and enough strength to stand up for myself. On Monday morning, I called Amanda Harris. I'm ready for the appraisal, I said. And I'd like to see a few apartments, too. Perfect, Amanda replied. How about Wednesday morning? I'll bring a colleague for the inspection. I agreed. On Wednesday, Amanda arrived with another agent. I told my family they were insurance inspectors checking the property before renewing the home policy. Melissa shrugged. Jason barely looked up. They didn't suspect a thing. The agent spent nearly an hour walking through every room, measuring, taking photos, making notes. When they finished, Amanda smiled. This is a lovely home, Sarah. Great yard, everything in good shape. I'd say a fair price would be around $135,000, maybe more if we find the right buyer quickly. That afternoon, I went with Amanda to see some homes. The first two were small and gloomy, but the third was perfect, a two-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor, bright and airy, with large windows overlooking the city park. The kitchen was small but fully equipped, the living room spacious enough for guests, the bedroom cozy with a built-in closet, and the bathroom spotless. This building is about 25 years old but recently renovated, Amanda explained. The wiring and plumbing are new, and it has security and a parking lot. The price was $62,000, nearly half the value of my house. If you move quickly, the owner's willing to drop it to $60,000, she added. She's relocating to another city. I pictured myself living there, the teapot on the kitchen table, bookshelves filled with my favorite novels, a few potted plants by the window. No one would touch my things. No one would forbid me from having friends over. I love it, I said softly, but I'll need to sell my house first. I understand, Amanda replied. Call me when you're ready. On Thursday afternoon, Amanda called again, her voice brimming with excitement. Sarah, I have good news. We found a buyer for your house. But I haven't even listed it yet, I said in surprise. I know, she said, but I already have clients looking in your neighborhood, a young couple. The husband works at a bank, the wife's a school teacher, and they have 2 kids in elementary school. They love houses like yours." My heart began to race. "They're offering $130,000 cash, no loans, as long as the deal closes this month. $130,000 in cash within a month, more than enough to buy the apartment and live comfortably for years." "When do they want to see the house?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Tomorrow or over the weekend. They hope to move in before the end of October." I thought fast. Jason came home early on Fridays, and Melissa usually did her deep cleaning then. The weekend would be easier. "Saturday at 11 o'clock, I said. "Perfect," Amanda replied. "I'll set it up." I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. Everything was happening so fast. Just a week ago I had still been hesitating, and now there was a real buyer. All the next day I was distracted and clumsy, spilled sugar, forgot to turn off the radio, asked Emma twice about her homework. Thankfully, everyone just assumed I was getting old and cranky. That evening at dinner, I said, "Tomorrow I'll be going over to Linda's. She's been sick, and I want to help her a bit." "Will you be gone long?" Melissa asked, spooning potatoes onto the kids' plates. "Probably until noon, depending on how she feels." "Fine," Melissa said shortly. Jason didn't look up from his plate, and the kids didn't even react. No one cared. On Saturday morning I woke up early and cleaned the house from top to bottom. I picked up every toy, folded the blankets on the couch, and polished every corner of the living room. I wanted the house to look perfect. At 10:30, I put on my coat and pretended to leave for my friend's house. In reality, I just walked around the block and came back right at 11. A car I didn't recognize was parked out front. Melissa was standing outside with a young couple. The husband looked about 35, neatly dressed, and the wife had a warm, gentle smile. "Sarah, this is Mr. and Mrs. Baxter," Melissa said. I smiled and welcomed them inside. They toured the house, inspecting every detail, asking about the heating system, the roof, and the backyard. "This is a wonderful home," the husband said. "It's clear it's been well cared for." "The yard's beautiful," his wife added. "Our kids would love it. They've always dreamed of having their own backyard." A pang of sadness hit me. This house truly was meant for a young family, a place for children to play, for birthdays and barbecues, for the kind of happiness my own family had forgotten how to cherish. "We're ready to offer $130,000, the husband said. "As long as we can close soon, we need to move in before the end of the month." "You already have the funds?" I asked. "Yes, in cash. We just sold our apartment in the city." Melissa pulled a folder from her bag. "If you agree," Amanda said, "we can sign a preliminary contract today. The legal process would take only a few weeks, and then the house would be theirs." I flipped through the documents carefully. Every clause was clear and fair. $130,000 for the house that had once felt like my prison was now my ticket to freedom. "All right," I said finally, a wave of relief washing over me. "I agree." We signed the temporary contract. The Baxters left a $10,000 deposit, and the final closing was set for October 15th. When they drove away, I stood alone in the house that was no longer mine. On paper, I would still own it for 3 more weeks, but in my heart, I had already said goodbye. I walked through each room, running my hand along the familiar walls. This was where my children had grown up, where we'd celebrated birthdays and Christmases, where my husband had held my hand for the last time before he passed. Memories flooded back, not all sad, but I knew that the past couldn't be relived, and the present had become suffocating. On Monday morning, I met Amanda again to finalize the apartment purchase. "The owner agreed to sell for $58,000, she said. "You can sign in a few days." I did the math, sell the house for $130,000, buy the apartment for $58,000, and I'd still have over $70,000 left. Enough to live comfortably for the next decade. I agree, I said, signing the papers. The move was scheduled for October 18th, 3 days after the sale would close. That evening when I got home, the family was gathered in the kitchen. The kids were doing homework, Melissa was cooking, and Jason was reading the paper. "How's Linda?" Melissa asked without looking up. "Is she feeling better?" "She's seeing the doctor tomorrow," I replied. "Good," Melissa said. "I've been thinking we should redecorate the living room. The wallpaper's so dated, maybe even get new furniture." I looked around the room that wouldn't belong to them in 3 weeks and wondered how she would react when she found out. "Don't rush," I said slowly. "You might want to look over your finances first." "Finances?" Melissa turned around, puzzled. "Jason's doing fine and I'm working too. This is our house, we can do whatever we want with it." "Our house?" I almost laughed at her confidence. Over the next few days, I quietly prepared. I started packing, choosing what to take and what to leave. The apartment already came furnished, so I only needed the essentials. The hardest part was deciding what to do with the memories, family photos, paperwork, the kids' drawings, the grandkids' crafts. Each one pulled me back to a time when we had truly been a family. In the end, I kept only the most important photos and documents and left the rest for Jason to handle. On the evening of October 13th, as we sat down for dinner, I knew I couldn't hide it any longer. Only 2 days remained before the sale would be finalized, and no one knew. "Everyone," I said calmly, "I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Jason asked, still staring at his plate. "I've sold the house." Melissa dropped her fork. Jason froze, a piece of bread halfway to his mouth. The kids stopped chewing, staring wide-eyed at me. "What did you say?" Melissa asked, her voice low. "I said I sold the house. The deal closes in 2 days. The new owners move in next week." The kitchen fell silent. Only the ticking of the wall clock and the hum of the air conditioner filled the room. "You're joking," Jason said, his face pale. "No, I'm not. I have the papers if you want to see them." A heavy silence hung over us. I could see the shock sinking in. Melissa was the first to react. "You can't sell this house," she said slowly, as if explaining something to a confused child. "I absolutely can," I replied evenly. "This house belongs to me. I have every legal right to sell it." Melissa stood up so fast her chair toppled over. Her face went from white to red. "No! You can't just throw us out. We have kids." "I'm not throwing anyone out," I said firmly. "I'm simply selling my house." "How long are you giving us?" she shouted. 2 days to sign. The buyers move in next week. That gives us 10 days. 10 days, Sarah." Jason finally spoke. "Mom, why would you do this? Why didn't you tell us? We're not ready for this." "I've said it many times, it's time for you two to find your own place." You kept brushing it off. "But you can't just do this," Jason said, his voice rising. "It's like you're cutting us off completely." The kids looked around, confused. "Grandma, where are we going to live?" Emma whispered. Before I could answer, Melissa shouted, "We're not going anywhere. She's lost her mind." "No sane person would do this." "Melissa, don't talk like that in front of the children." "Don't tell me how to talk," she snapped, her hands shaking. "You've destroyed this family, Sarah. You're throwing your own grandchildren out on the street." "I'm not throwing anyone out," I said. "I'm just selling my property." "Your property," Melissa sneered. "What are we then? Strangers?" We've lived here 2 years, the kids are settled. Jason stepped closer, his voice heavy. Mom, please explain. Why make such a drastic decision? We're family. I looked at my son, a kind but weak man who had never learned to stand up for himself, let alone for me. Jason, have you forgotten? Last week your wife screamed in my face that this wasn't my house. She didn't mean it. She meant every word. She also said, I have no right to make rules in this home. Melissa said nothing. Maybe she remembered saying it. So if this isn't my house anymore, I continued, then why should I keep it? I'm selling it so I can have a place where I actually belong. Sarah, Melissa said coldly, you're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this. I don't think so. Where will you go? I've bought an apartment downtown. I'm moving next week. Melissa went pale. She realized this hadn't been a spur-of-the-moment decision, it had been planned all along. You've already arranged everything, she stammered. You lied to us. You pretended nothing was happening. I didn't lie, I said calmly. I just didn't see a reason to announce it. Melissa turned to her husband. Jason, say something. Your mother can't do this to us. Jason looked at me bewildered. Mom, what about us? We don't have enough for a deposit or first month's rent. Jason, you both work. You're adults, you'll figure it out. 10 days? That's all? He asked, almost in disbelief. Other people manage, I said. You can too. Melissa buried her face in her hands, almost hysterical. What about the kids? Their school, their friends, they can't just move somewhere else. Why not? Kids adapt faster than adults. Emma's voice trembled. Grandma, why don't you want to live with us anymore? You don't bother anyone. My heart clenched. She didn't understand. Emma, it's not that, sweetheart. Don't talk to her, Melissa cut in. She's just a kid. She'll never understand your selfishness. Selfish? I looked straight at her. Have you forgotten who gave you this roof over your head? You're the one who said this was temporary. 2 years if you'd wanted to. You could have found your own place by now. Melissa's lips curled into a bitter smile. Why would we? This place is perfect. It was a big house, with a yard and every comfort. Why move out? She said sharply. Just to live in a cramped apartment. So that was it. They had never planned to leave. They wanted to stay forever, to slowly take over everything and push me aside in my own home. That's right, I said quietly. Why leave when you can live here for free and act like you own it? We don't live for free, Melissa snapped. We pay utilities, we buy groceries. Utilities and groceries aren't rent, I said firmly. If you were renting elsewhere, it would cost you 3 times as much. Jason sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Mom, how could you do this to us? We thought we were family, but now it feels like we're just tenants you can evict any time. Jason, I'm not evicting anyone, I said evenly. I'm selling my house. Those are 2 very different things. Not to us, Melissa shouted. Either way, we lose our home. You have money, I said. You can find another place. Money? Melissa gave a hollow laugh. We never saved a dime because we thought we'd be here forever. Suddenly, my little grandson Benjamin burst into tears. It was the kind of cry that came from a child who didn't understand what was happening, only that something terrible was unfolding. Mom, why is everyone yelling? Why is Grandma kicking us out? I'm not kicking you out, Ben, I said softly, walking over to hold him. Grandma just needs to live alone. But why? He asked, his eyes red and wet. Everything was fine before. How could I explain to a 9-year-old that sometimes adults simply can't live together anymore? That his mother had turned my life into misery? That I couldn't keep enduring humiliation in my own home? Sometimes adults need their own space, I whispered. It doesn't mean we stop loving each other. Don't lie to him, Melissa cut in coldly. If you loved us, you wouldn't be this cruel. Cruel? I looked straight at her. And what about how you've treated me these past 2 years? Stopping me from seeing friends, criticizing me in my own house, and even suggesting a nursing home for me? Jason lifted his head, confused. A nursing home? Mom, what are you talking about? Ask your wife, I said. She's the one who suggested finding a special place for me. Melissa's face went pale. I was only thinking about your health. My health? Or getting the old woman out of your way? Is that true, Melissa? Jason asked heavily. Melissa stayed silent, but her expression said everything. I can't believe this, Jason said quietly. Mom, I'm so sorry. There's no need to be, I told him gently. It's not your fault your wife saw me as an obstacle. But you're right, you should have noticed sooner. It's too late now, Melissa interrupted coldly. What matters is what we do next. She stepped closer, her eyes hard. Sarah, I'll ask one last time, can you cancel the sale? No, I said firmly. Then hear this, Melissa said, her voice icy. We'll stop this transaction one way or another. We'll claim you were coerced, or that you've lost mental capacity, whatever it takes. We have rights. You have no rights at all, I replied sharply. This property is in my name. We've lived here for 2 years. We've invested money, we've made improvements. What money? What improvements? Jason built shelves in Ben's room. I bought new curtains. Shelves and curtains aren't capital investments, Melissa. She realized she had no legal footing, so she turned to emotional blackmail. Fine, she said dramatically. Go ahead and throw us out. But remember, you destroyed this family. The kids will never forget how you kicked them out of their home. Jason will remember how his mother betrayed him when he needed her most. That's enough, Melissa, Jason said tiredly. Mom's right. We've stayed here too long. Melissa glared at him in disbelief. You're taking her side? I'm not taking sides, Jason said. I just understand that Mom's had enough. We've pushed her too far. Too far? Melissa laughed bitterly. So now she's some kind of saint? This is Mom's house, Jason said firmly. And she has every right to live how she wants. Melissa saw then that her husband wouldn't defend her anymore. She straightened, her tone like ice. Fine, Sarah. But remember this after today, we're done. You'll never see the kids again. We're leaving this city and disappearing from your life. Those words cut deep. No more Emma or Ben. No watching them grow up. No longer part of their lives. But then I wondered, had I truly been part of their lives lately? When was the last time they'd come to me for advice, or even just to talk? Melissa had been turning them away from me for years. Do whatever you want, I said calmly. She looked momentarily thrown off. She must have expected her threat to break me. So you don't even care about your grandkids anymore? I love them, I said softly. Just not enough to keep enduring this. Mom, Jason began, but Melissa cut him off. Enough. This conversation's over. If your mother wants to be selfish, she'll deal with the consequences. She turned toward the stairs. Emma, Ben, go pack your things. But Mom, no buts. Grandma doesn't want us here, so we'll live without her. The kids followed obediently. At the door, Emma turned back, her eyes sad. Grandma, do you really not want to see us anymore? I'll always miss you, I said honestly. But Sometimes adults have to make hard choices. She nodded quietly and walked away. Only Jason and I remained in the kitchen. "Mom," he said softly, "I'm sorry. I should have protected you." "It's all right, Jason. You were caught in the middle. I understand. But I should have stepped in sooner." "It's too late for that now," I said gently. "What matters is what you'll do next." He sighed. "Tomorrow I'll look for a rental. Hopefully I'll find something affordable." "You will," I said. "Chicago's not the cheapest city, but it's not impossible." We sat in silence. Outside, night had fallen. The kitchen felt cold and empty. "Mom," Jason said after a while, "after you move, we'll still see each other, right?" "Of course," I answered, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "You're my son. I won't let you disappear from my life." He gave a sad smile and left the room. I sat there alone, surrounded by a half-eaten meal and the remnants of broken hope. The next morning, the house felt heavy, like it was breathing its final sigh. No one ate breakfast together. I sat in my room with a cup of tea. Jason left for work after grabbing a quick bite, and Melissa quietly got the kids ready for school. No one said a word. When the house was finally empty, I pulled out the paperwork to review one last time. Tomorrow I'd sign the final documents and hand over the keys. Everything was in order. Melissa wouldn't find a loophole no matter how hard she tried. Close to noon, the phone rang. A woman's voice introduced herself as a legal assistant. "Mrs. Sarah Miller? I'm calling on behalf of Miss Melissa Miller. She's asked me to discuss the possibility of pausing the home sale process." "What does Melissa Miller have to do with my house sale?" I asked. "She claims that the rights of current residents are being violated." I let out a small laugh. "She has no rights here whatsoever." "The woman," I hesitated, clearly unsure how to justify any claim. "Perhaps we could meet to find a mutually agreeable solution?" "The solution already exists," I said firmly. "My son's family is looking for another place to live. Goodbye." I hung up. Half an hour later, the phone rang again. This time, it was Melissa. "Sarah, I have a proposal," she said crisply. "We're willing to buy the house for $130,000 in cash. Of course, not all at once. We could pay in installments or through a mortgage." "Melissa, the house is already sold." "I'm signing tomorrow. You can cancel, pay the penalty, and sell to us instead." "I can't and I don't want to." "Then we'll sue you," she snapped. "For what reason?" "For being mentally unfit. No sane person would throw her own family out on the street." I laughed softly. "Melissa, go ahead and try to prove that." I was a nurse for 38 years, my mind's sharp, my memory's excellent, and every document is legally sound. Which judge do you think will believe I've lost capacity? "You'll see," she shouted before slamming the phone down. That evening, Jason came home looking exhausted and anxious. Over dinner, he told me he'd spent the entire day calling real estate offices and checking rental listings. "The options are terrible," he said. "Everything's either too expensive or in bad neighborhoods. Some landlords don't even rent to families with kids." "You'll find something," I reassured him. "Not in a day," he sighed. "Time's running out." Melissa stayed silent through the meal, but I saw her clenched fists. All evening she wrote notes, calculated, and made phone calls. The next morning, the day of the final signing, she made her last move. Just as I was getting ready to leave for the notary's office, the doorbell rang. A middle-aged man in a suit stood on the porch. "Mrs. Sarah Miller?" he asked. "I'm representing Miss Melissa Miller." "I'm listening," I said calmly. "My client believes the sale has proceeded without proper consideration for the rights of current occupants." We request that the transaction be suspended until the matter is clarified. I request that you leave my property, I replied evenly. Your client has no rights here. According to property law, the house belongs to the person whose name is on the deed, and that's me. Good day, sir. I closed the door, grabbed my folder, and left for the notary's office. Everything went smoothly. The Baxter family arrived with a briefcase full of cash. I signed every document, the notary sealed them, and the house officially became theirs. When do you plan to move in? I asked. Claudia smiled. Tomorrow morning. The kids are so excited we finally have a home of our own. A home of their own. Those words caught in my throat. I remembered that feeling, joy, hope, peace, the same emotions my husband and I felt when we moved into this house so many years ago. When I came back with the signed papers, the air in the house was heavy. Melissa paced the floor like a trapped animal, while Jason sat hunched over, still calling landlords. Thankfully, the kids were at school. Happy now? Melissa snapped. You sold it? Yes, I said simply. It's done. Don't you feel even a little sad? Don't you care about your son and your grandchildren? I do feel sad, I said softly, but not enough to keep suffering under your roof. Melissa collapsed into a chair and began to cry, not the fake kind of crying, but deep, broken sobs. What are we supposed to do now? Where will we go? We have nothing left. Jason walked over and put his arms around her. We'll find something, he said wearily, even if it's temporary. The kids will have to change schools, leave their friends, Melissa cried. Children adapt quickly, I said. Watching them, I felt both sorrow and relief. I pitied my son, who would bear the weight of his wife's choices. I pitied my grandchildren, who didn't understand why their world was falling apart. But beneath it all, the relief remained stronger. Tomorrow, I would finally be free. That night, we began packing. Melissa went from room to room, stuffing things into boxes and suitcases. The kids helped, dazed and confused. Emma came to me several times, her voice small. Grandma, why do we have to leave? Because I need to live alone. Does that mean we'll never visit you again? You will, I said softly. Just somewhere else. But in her eyes I saw something break. Jason managed to find a temporary rental, a small 3-bedroom apartment in the suburbs. It's expensive and cramped, he sighed, but we'll only stay a month, then find something better. We packed through the night. After 2 years, they'd accumulated so much: toys, clothes, books, dishes, appliances. Everything had to be sorted, packed, and decided on what to keep and what to leave behind. What about the toys in the yard? Melissa asked. Leave them for the new owners, I said. They have kids too. And my roses? She asked bitterly. I stayed silent. What roses? You ripped them out last year, remember? The next morning, the house was empty. Jason rented a small moving truck to carry their things to the new apartment. Melissa, still clinging to the last bit of hope, stood by her suitcase. Sarah, this is your last chance, she said quietly. We can forget everything and start over. I shook my head. We can't. Then it's really over. Jason hugged me tightly. Mom, I'm sorry. I wish we could have lived together in peace. It's not your fault, I said softly. You're a good man. You just got caught in a painful situation. We'll still see each other, right? Of course, you know where to find me. The kids came to say goodbye. Emma hugged me and whispered, Grandma, I'm going to miss you so much. I'll miss you too, I replied as tears fell down my face. Ben just waved from the car window, too young to understand. When the truck disappeared around the corner, I stood alone in the empty house. Not sad, Not relieved, just hollow. An hour later, the Baxters arrived with a truck full of boxes. A new life was beginning in that home, while my chapter there had quietly closed. I walked through the bare rooms, remembering every moment, the children growing up, the laughter in the kitchen, the last argument with Melissa in the living room. Now, they existed only as echoes. That afternoon, I rolled my suitcase out the door for the last time. 3 days later, after moving into my new apartment, I woke up to the sound of soft rain against the hotel window where I was staying temporarily. The city felt wet and unfamiliar, but my heart was filled with energy. Today, my life began again. At the real estate office, Amanda the agent was already waiting to finalize the paperwork and hand me the keys. The previous owner, a kind woman in her 50s named Louise, was rushing to move out of state to live with her daughter. "The apartment's in great shape," she said as we walked around. "Most of the furniture is nearly new, and everything works fine. I think you'll love it." And she was right. The bright walls, the big windows, the cozy order of everything, it felt warm and inviting. The living room had a soft couch and a small coffee table, just right for a few friends. The kitchen was compact but fully equipped. My bedroom faced an inner courtyard where old lemon trees grew, quiet in the mornings with no sound of traffic. After signing the papers, I began unpacking. There wasn't much: 2 suitcases of clothes, 1 box of documents and photos, and a small bag with medicine and cosmetics. I hung a few framed pictures, my husband, the kids when they were young, a few family portraits. Then I folded clothes into the closet and placed my familiar dishes in the kitchen. Slowly, the apartment began to feel like home. An hour later, Amalia called to check in. "How's the new place?" she asked. After chatting for a while, I took a walk around the neighborhood. There was a grocery store, a pharmacy, and a hair salon nearby. Downtown was about a 30-minute walk or 10 minutes by bus. The medical clinic sat right on the corner, perfect for someone my age. That afternoon, sitting in the living room with a cup of tea, I felt an overwhelming peace. This home truly belonged to me. No one gave orders. No one dismissed my choices as inconvenient. A week passed, and I settled into my new rhythm, waking up when I wanted, eating breakfast slowly, finishing books I'd left unfinished, watching my favorite shows at night, and listening to classical music for as long as I pleased. By Friday, my oldest son called. "Mom, are you doing okay? How's the apartment?" "I'm fine, Michael. How about you?" "Same old, busy as always. I heard from Jason that you really sold the house." So Jason had told him. Yes, I did. They're renting a place in the suburbs now. He paused for a moment, then asked, "What happened, Mom?" "Jason just said you and Melissa didn't get along." I told him everything, how I'd slowly lost my place in my own home, how Melissa had turned daily life into a burden until everything finally broke. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he said quietly. "I should have visited more often. Don't blame yourself, son. You have your own life, your work. You always cared. You always called. Melissa just hid her true nature too well." "So what happens now? Everyone lives apart?" "Yes. Time will take care of the rest. But living together again, that's over." On Saturday, my 3 closest friends, Amalia, Sylvia, and Mrs. Grimsby, came to visit. We sat, drinking tea and chatting, admiring how warm and bright the apartment felt. "It's so peaceful here," Sylvia said. "And most importantly," Amalia added, "it's yours. No one tells you what to do anymore." Mrs. Grimsby smiled. "You did the right thing, Sarah. Not everyone our age has the courage to start over." We talked until night fell. No one rushed to leave. No one complained about laughter. For the first time in years, I felt like the true owner of my own home. Sunday evening, I got an unexpected call from Claudia Baxter, the new owner of my old house. "Sorry to bother you, Sarah," she said politely. "I have a strange question. Do you happen to know someone named Amalia?" My Aunt Linda lives at the senior center nearby and mentioned a friend named Amalia who often talks about her close friend Sarah. "Could that be you?" I smiled. "It could be. Amalia is a dear friend of mine. She sometimes visits relatives in that area." Then everything connected. Claudia Baxter said her aunt had spoken very kindly of me. She also mentioned she'd heard that I had a son who worked as an engineer in the same area. "That's right," I said. "My son is Michael. His wife Amalia and I have a small section attached to our old house. It used to be a workshop, and we were planning to turn it into a guest room. If your cousin ever wants to move back to this town, we'd be happy to rent it to him for a symbolic price. What matters most to us is finding good, decent people." It was such a pleasant surprise. Michael had often said he was tired of big city life and longed to return to the quiet suburbs, but jobs there were scarce and rent was high. "That's a generous offer," I said. The call reassured me that my old home was now in good hands. The Baxter family, friends of friends, were trustworthy and kind, and they'd offered to rent the annex to Michael. When I told him, my son exclaimed, "That's perfect. I can work remotely. I'll call them right away." A week later, Michael visited the place. He loved the private entrance, the small kitchen, and the separate bathroom, and decided to move in the following month. That night, Jason called. He said their apartment was too small, too expensive, and too far from his job. The kids missed their school, and he spent more than 2 hours commuting each day. I suggested he look for work somewhere more affordable, perhaps near where Michael was moving. Between apologies, we agreed that he and the kids could visit any time. By early November, Michael was living just 15 minutes from my new home. The Baxters helped him set up the internet, shared freshly baked bread, and their children were polite and sweet. By mid-month, I took care of Amalia when she caught the flu. After she recovered, she hosted a cozy afternoon tea at my apartment filled with laughter, and I finally understood how precious it is to have your own space. Melissa learned that kindness isn't weakness. Jason realized that love means protecting the people you care about. And I, after so many years, finally found peace and independence. A small apartment, all mine, and the freedom to live as I choose. What I've learned through it all is that love and family aren't measured only by staying under the same roof, but by learning to respect each other's distance. I once believed keeping everyone close was the only way to protect our bond, but sometimes letting go at the right moment is the only way love can stay whole. Because only when we live honestly with ourselves can we truly give love in a healthy way. Now, I no longer feel lonely in my little apartment. Each morning, as I brew my coffee and open the curtains to the sunlight, I know I made the right choice. I still love my children and grandchildren. I've just learned how to love without losing myself. And what about you? If you were in my place, what would you do? How far would you hold on? And when would you let go to keep your peace? Share your thoughts below. And if you'd like to keep joining me for stories about family, about wounds healed by courage and love, stay with this channel. Together, we'll keep walking this path, one story, one lesson, one understanding heart at a time.